Welcome to our troubleshooting video. In this video, I'm going to run over a few troubleshooting things that often happen to clients. We have an emergency technical line. People call us on that, so we've kind of gathered some information to be helpful to people who get stuck in certain situations. So I'm just going to demonstrate certain things going wrong and talk you through them and just how to fix them. If you are obviously having problems, do feel free to call our emergency technical helpline, but we do simply ask you to watch this video first or go through our troubleshooting guide. There's a full guide on our website that's helpful. But beyond that, yeah, give us a call. So with this one, my drink is coming out pretty slow to a dribble. Not ideal. Now, the most common call out we actually get is always about the gas systems. So people's pint will be pouring relatively slow and they'll say, oh yeah, no, it's been pouring absolutely fine. But this is a gas pressure system, so it would have had pressure in the system, which means you can actually still get a few pints out of the keg before you run out of gas. But it's not a clever idea to do that without gas, and I'll explain further why. First of all, what you're going to do is make sure that your gas is actually turned on. So you turn it on here, and then you'll see there should be gas reading on the actual primary regulator needle, so that's the one that is actually attached to the gas bottle. Then what you want to do, if that doesn't work, is then go over to the secondary regs, and these also have on-offs as well, and just make sure that is on. So turn that on, and in this instance you can hear that has just charged the keg. So that hopefully will solve any problems. Just keep in mind, if you've actually done that, poured some pints through without having the gas on, this is going to charge this thing full of gas and you're going to get some frothy pints to begin with. If you're still finding that your product's coming out pretty slow, what you can do is adjust what's called the flow control. Now, the reason that you have these is because when you serve using a dispense tap, you simply have the tap on or off. But if you need to change how fast the product comes out the tap, you use the flow control. And these are pretty simple. They actually say open and close on them, and you literally just open them up. What we recommend to do to adjust it, the easiest way to do it, because it's obviously quite difficult being in two places at once, if you close it all the way down as much as you can like that, open up your tap with something underneath it, you can actually adjust it and open it and engage it until you think it's pouring correctly, like so. So this one, my drink is pouring pretty foamy, which is not ideal. Now, if you found that your drink is pouring foam from the get-go, so you haven't actually been serving and it's just come out foam straight away on your first use, first thing you want to do is actually check, is your cooler on? That's the first thing you do. Has it actually got power? Because obviously if that's not working, then you're going to get a foamy drink. And the reason being for that is you need to actually cool the product to trap the CO2 within the drink. So first thing you've got to check is check that the cooler is on. It will make a nice humming noise. You'll feel air ventilation coming out from the fan that's pushing over the heat dump. So that's a telltale sign that it's being on. The other thing is always worth a check to see that there's actually water in there. It has to be full of water to create a nice bank to chill the drink. So simply just pour some water into the top and let it overflow out. If it overflows, you know it's got full of water. It's very rare that it wouldn't be, because obviously we fill this up. If you're setting up your own system, you may have forgotten to do this. So that's the first thing you want to check, that everything's cold. In rare circumstances, you could have really, really super hot kegs. That could be a problem, but in reality, that's only really going to cause you a problem further down the line when you've been operating the cooler for quite a while. If you found that your drinks have suddenly become frothy, again, you might have been overusing the system. I mean, it takes quite a lot to do that, because these things pour on average about 60 pints an hour per line that we install. So you shouldn't have too much of a problem unless it's literally 30 degrees outside and you're trying to pump keg after keg after keg through that. Ultimately, we always try and advise the best system for your uses, but sometimes we don't get all that information, so we can only advise as far as the information that we've got. Really important to keep your kegs as well out of the shade in a relatively cool area. So don't go chucking them into the sun. It's not ideal because you will get foaming. But other than the actual temperature, just make sure if you've got a cold product, it shouldn't foam. The only other thing that you do need to know about, if it's coming out really, really fast, again, you can adjust the flow control, which is here, which I've touched on in other videos too. Simply twist open and close. What we recommend doing is having a nice consistent pour, not too fast, because if it comes out and hits the bottom of the glass, it's literally just going to foam up and cause a lot of problems. So what we recommend doing usually is shut the flow control fully, Then what you do is you open the tap and then gradually open the flow control, with a glass or a container underneath, so you can see how fast that is coming out until you get a nice consistent pour. It's pretty obvious when it's at the right pour anyway speed, because you can see it coming clean. There's only one other thing that can also cause foam, which is not ideal, which I'll show you up here. Sometimes there are creamer nozzles left in the tap, so this can be a rare occurrence, but we often send these taps out to other clients too, who use them for various products, stout products basically. And for a stout, you have to have what's called a creamer nozzle inside. Quite simply, if you take the nozzle off, just be sure to clean this properly afterwards, anti-bac or soapy water, because it's hygiene after all. This one in particular will be see-through all the way through because it's a lager one, but in there'd be almost like a washer with pretty much a sieve in there. So you'll see like a little metal plate with 5 to 7 dots in there that actually goes through and agitates the drink. If that is inside, you're running a lager product for a beer product other than stout, it will create pure froth. So you can actually simply remove these. There's a little rubber O-ring that you can take out the washer, get rid of that and put it back in. That should solve that problem. But other than that, if you've got any other issues, just give us a call on the relevant details. The product's leaking everywhere. What to do? This one's usually a really simple fix. All the fittings that we use are what's called John Guest push fit fittings. So simply just push it as hard as you can into the fitting, make sure all the fittings are well and truly pushed on, and that will usually solve your problem. It's quite rare that the problem will persist after that. If there is a problem beyond that, just make sure you're checking all the fittings. So for couple of examples, they have nice fittings that you tighten up with a spanner. Anything beyond that, then it's time to give us a call. Oh, my drink is warm. Not ideal. So if your drink is warm, it's quite simply the cooler is obviously not doing its job. So the first thing you want to do is check that it's actually on. So first of all, check the power, check the switches, but you'll know this is on quite simply because you'll hear it humming, you'll hear a compressor going, and you'll hear a fan. The fan will be kicking out some air over the heat dump. So it should be pretty obvious that it's on too. Beyond that, there's obviously troubleshooting that we can look into a bit further to make sure it's, for example, it's got some water in the cooler. The way you check that is just pour a little bit of water into the top until it comes out of the overflow here at the front. If that is full, it could be that you've been pouring a lot of drink through the system. It needs time to catch up. Also make sure obviously your kegs are kept in a nice, relatively cool area, basically out of the sun. But almost every time that there's warm drink, it's always going to be the cooler. Anything beyond that, of course, give us a call, more than happy to help. So this is flat beer, not ideally the best. So there are several reasons why this can happen. First one I'd like to talk about, believe it or not, is the actual glass. Make sure you're using nice, clean glasses because the impurities can affect the beer and actually make it go flat pretty quickly. The second one is to make sure that you've got the right gas quantity in there. So if you're actually hiring a system from us or buying a system from us, we actually set the PSI correctly to the brewery standard specification. So ideally, we don't ask you to mess around with that. The other common misconception is people think, oh, well, it's not got a head on it. Typically, that's usually how people pour the pint, or they are not expecting the pint to appear in a certain way. So there are certain products, for example, out there, people think they're going to be much fizzy or carbonated than they are. I'm not going to actually name some of these products, but in reality, it's just the product itself. To be sure, if you ever want to check if a product is actually carbonated, take a 1p coin or any copper coin like that, drop it in the glass, and if you can see that the bubbles, hook on to the actual coin, then you know it's actually carbonated. That's a really good trick to learn. The other thing that could be a problem is simply out of date beer, or the keg's been open a while. That's never usually helpful, or you've got a slight gas leak somewhere. But usually if you're hiring a system from us, it's very unlikely you'll have any carbonation or gas issues, certainly because there's just not enough time actually for the gas to cause a problem. You usually notice when there are severe issues, you usually know something over a longer period of time, usually beyond 48 hours or a week or so, once the keg has sat and had a chance to try and react to the gas levels that we put into it, or escape effectively for that matter. So anything beyond that, give us a shout.